The pipes were rusted, dented, and half forgotten, yet the moment 12-year-old Wren Callahan dragged them out of Mr. Doherty's ditch, the whole town decided she'd finally lost her mind. It was a bright Saturday morning in late June, the kind where the sun climbed early and the fields shimmered gold before noon. Wren had been walking the gravel road that cut through Millbrook Hollow, a small farming community where everyone knew everyone's business before they knew their own. She spotted the pile of old aluminum irrigation pipes stacked behind the Doherty barn, left there since the family upgraded to a modern sprinkler system 2 years earlier. Nobody wanted them. They were scratched, some bent, a few with holes rusted clean through. To anyone driving past, they were junk. To Wren, they were something else entirely. She had grown up on her grandfather's 40 acres, the same land her father now struggled to keep alive after 2 brutal drought seasons had drained both the soil and the family's savings. Her father, Thomas Callahan, was a proud man, the kind who worked from before sunrise until his shadow disappeared at dusk, but pride didn't bring rain, and worry had started carving lines into his face that hadn't been there a year ago. Wren noticed everything. She noticed how he stared at the cracked earth in the south field like it had personally betrayed him. She noticed the unpaid bills tucked under the flour tin so her mother wouldn't have to see them twice a day. And she noticed, most of all, how quiet dinner had become. So when she saw those old pipes, something clicked into place in her mind, a plan built from equal parts desperation and stubborn hope. She asked Mr. Doherty if she could take them. The old farmer squinted at her like she'd asked for the moon, but shrugged and said she was welcome to whatever she could carry. Word spread fast in a town that small. By the time Wren had hauled the first batch of pipes down the road in her wagon, sweat soaking through her flannel shirt, half the porch sitters on Main Street had something to say about it. They laughed. Not cruelly, not at first, just the easy, dismissive laughter of grown adults who'd seen 100 kids chase strange ideas and watched them fizzle by supper time. What's she gonna do, water her dolls? Someone chuckled. Her own uncle teased her over supper, asking if she was building a jungle gym out of scrap metal. Even her father managed a tired smile and told her not to tire herself out over nothing. But Wren didn't stop. Every afternoon after her chores, she combed the county for more forgotten pipes, behind barns, in ditches, rusting in the weeds of retired farms. She learned to unscrew fittings with a wrench too big for her hands. She learned which pipes still held water and which had rusted past saving. Her palms blistered, then calloused. Her boots wore thin at the toe. And still, the laughter followed her like a shadow she couldn't outrun. If you believe small hands can carry big dreams, and that second chances deserve to be given freely, hit that like button right now, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Heartbeat Tales so you never miss a story like Wren's. At night, by flashlight in the tool shed, Wren sketched her plan on the back of old feed sacks. She'd read about gravity-fed drip irrigation in a library book 2 summers ago, back when her only worry was finishing chapter books before school started. Now that knowledge felt like a lifeline. She mapped how the old pipes could be repurposed, connected end to end, punched with small holes, angled downhill from the pond behind their property to snake through the wilting south field where her father had all but given up planting. Her mother, Denise, found her out there one night, hunched over sacks covered in pencil marks, and instead of laughing, she simply sat down beside her daughter and asked her to explain it. Wren talked for almost an hour, faster and faster as her excitement built, and when she finished, her mother didn't say much. She just squeezed her hand and told her to be careful climbing the ladder to the barn loft where she kept storing the pipes. It took 3 weeks of secret work, sneaking out early before her father woke, dragging pipes into position along the field's edge, testing water flow with buckets carried from the pond. Her hands shook the day she finally connected the last section, uncertain whether any of it would actually work. When she opened the valve, water sputtered, coughed through years of rust and dust, and then, impossibly, began to flow steady and clean down the makeshift line, dripping in slow, deliberate rhythm along the dry rows of corn. She didn't tell anyone. She let the field speak for itself. 2 weeks later, her father walked the property line the way he did every morning, coffee in hand, eyes half-braced for more disappointment. Instead, he stopped cold at the edge of the south field. The corn that had been curling and yellowing at the tips was standing taller, greener, the soil beneath it dark and damp instead of cracked like old leather. He crouched down, ran his fingers through the moist dirt, and for a long moment he simply stayed there, silent, staring at rows of crops that shouldn't have survived the dry spell at all. When Wren found him there, he didn't scold her for not asking permission. He didn't even ask how she'd done it. He just looked at her, something breaking open in his expression, somewhere between disbelief and overwhelming pride, and asked her, voice rough, who taught her to do something like this. Nobody, she said. I just didn't want us to lose the farm. Word moved through Millbrook Hollow faster than any laughter ever had. Neighbors who once snickered at the sight of a girl dragging scrap metal down the road now stood at the fence line, staring at the healthiest field in the county during the worst drought in a decade. Mr. Doherty came by personally, tipping his hat, admitting he never imagined his old junk pipes would end up saving somebody's harvest. The same uncle who'd teased her about jungle gyms now bragged to anyone who'd listen that his niece had engineered her own irrigation system out of nothing but grit and forgotten metal. Local news picked up the story within the month, sending a small crew out to film the girl who'd built a working drip system from cast-off parts nobody else wanted. Wren stood in front of the camera, nervous and sunburned, and said the only thing that felt true, that she hadn't done anything special, she just refused to believe that not enough meant nothing at all. Other struggling farms in the region started reaching out, asking her to walk their fields, to help repurpose their own forgotten equipment. What began as one girl's desperate attempt to save her family's land quietly became a lifeline for half a dozen other farms fighting the same losing battle against the drought. Her father, a man who rarely spoke about feelings, found her alone one evening sitting at the edge of the field, watching the water trickle steadily through the lines she'd built with her own two blistered hands. He sat down beside her without a word, wrapped his arm around her shoulders, and told her that she had saved more than just their crops. She had reminded him what it looked like to refuse giving up, right when he'd needed that reminder most. If this story moved something in you, if it reminded you that even the smallest hands can rebuild what the world has written off, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs a little hope today. It genuinely helps this channel keep telling stories like Wren's. And if you've made it this far into the story, drop the word harvest in the comments below, just so we know you stayed until the very end and let her journey sink in. By the time the drought finally broke that autumn, the Callahan farm wasn't just surviving, it was thriving, its yield higher than it had been in 3 years, all because a 12-year-old girl saw value where everyone else saw waste. The pipes that once drew laughter down a quiet gravel road became the very thing that saved a family's future, a reminder that dignity doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it arrives quietly, dragging scrap metal behind a wagon, refusing to be laughed out of believing in something better.